Yeah, that's pretty much how we all feel at the moment. A big sigh. It's not great. Out of another competition, Spurs lose in a nil-nil result against AC Milan at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. This is a response. This is a reaction from myself right away, just post bar. I've had a couple of drinks, so apologize if I'm a bit saucy, but it's got to be a saucy reaction. It's got to be immediate because it's emotional and frustrating, and that's pretty much what you can say about being a Spurs fan. But especially in the last couple of weeks, it's been pretty brutal. Going out against Sheffield, not scoring a goal, losing to Wolves in the league, not scoring a goal, losing to tonight an AC Milan side who, to be fair to themselves, are very good defensively, not scoring a goal. This is a forward line of Dejan Kulusevski, Harry Kane, and Heung-Min Son, Golden Boot winner from last season, who can't seem to get a goal against any team in any competition. It's frustrating. So let's talk about the first half quickly. The first half, it was cagey. There was aggression. There was a scenario where we sort of expected our players, two of them who were on yellow cards, who had gotten the yellow cards, would not play in the next round had we gotten there, which we'll eventually get to. In Longley and Romero, both getting a yellow card within the first 20 minutes, meaning that they're, of course, when you get a yellow card in that scenario, it's difficult to play the way you want to play, and you inevitably put yourself at risk. Longley managed that reasonably well, but wasn't really put under the cosh the same way Romero was, and we'll get to that again, like I said, in the second half. But the first half was it was cagey. It was just Spurs trying to figure out how to be an attacking team. They had a bit more of the ball than Milan did, but with doing very little with it. So there was a ton of huff and puff without any gusto, which is sort of what we've seen a lot from Spurs lately. And I think there's a tactical problem here, and I think that's something that we need to consider as Spurs fans. As much as we want to see Antonio Conte backed, which I am one of those people, and I certainly do think if he is back properly, that we may have an opportunity to win something. But that hasn't happened. He's got a team that don't necessarily understand his system or are incapable of playing it or don't want to play it. All of which are probably true depending on the player you ask. So first half did not, it didn't feel like there was anything going to happen. It felt the 0-0 was going to remain, and it was going to get cagier and more difficult for Spurs to do anything getting into the second half. We were not enough tactically and ruthlessly good on the front foot when it came to that final third. There was a bunch in their end. It was like, let's get into their half, let's pass it sideways and backwards, sometimes even out of our own half, and then eventually we'll try to get a chance. Sometimes it was whoever from 20 yards, 25 yards out, doesn't matter. It was just there was no cutthroat between the lines. Let's get in behind them and make something happen. And of course, there's players involved in those situations that we'll talk about a little bit, but made it incredibly difficult to do anything going forward. And I'll talk a little bit about tactics before I get into the second sort of section of the game. I want to get into the second half. So we start the second half, arguably kind of on the front foot, a little bit more aggressive. There's a bit more quality in some of the creation. Kulusevski found his ability to cross a couple of times in the first half. He struggled with it. Like, I don't know if that's just energy, ego. I don't know what it is. I don't know what has happened to Kulusevski. I love the player. I think there's so much there, but there's something about the way he's playing now that is not what he was doing when he first came to the side, and it's difficult to watch. Second half, though, he did put in a couple crosses that were reasonably good. We had better chances. There was more pressure on their defense, and that also led to them getting a ton of chances on a counterattack, which I think we dealt with reasonably well, other than maybe 2 or 3 times, which is, I guess, a lot. But one time in specific where Forster had to make a very good save, and he did. He had to remain big, and we had to expose ourselves. Now let's get back to the yellow cards we spoke about earlier, in Romero and Longley, and of course Romero, who I still think is a fantastic defender, and I recognize that there's a ton of growth required in order for him to become world class. When he's good, he's very good. When he's bad, he's very bad, and we saw both in this tie, but particularly the latter, I think, in his inability to recognize a moment. He's on a yellow card, and he eventually gets a red, a second yellow, or for a challenge in the middle of the pitch. Not it wasn't in the box where we were in a difficult situation. It was at the halfway line, where he sort of lunged in and stuck his leg forward, and it was a clear yellow card in the second yellow for a red. And as much as I love the guy, this has to be coached out of him, and I do think there's coaching involved there. But he also has to recognize the where he is in that scenario and make better decisions. Very difficult to watch. And of course, Spurs in the second half, having done much better despite not getting any results from it. And I'll stand by that. They were much better in the second half, but still not good enough. We need to be, I think we had 3 shots on target in total. We need to be better chances than Harry Kane going down on the ground. And of course, he misread it with his head, though. You know what I mean? It was just a bit absurd. And Spurs needed to do better for creation in this game. And this has been an ongoing thing. We spoke about it earlier. 0 goals in the last 3 games. It's telling you everything about tactics. And now I want to get into this a little bit, tactically speaking, when it comes to Antonio Conte. You know, we spoke about Stellini being Stellini and what he's done previously in his sort of tenure as being filling in for Conte. We all know it was Conte sort of behind the scenes, but Stellini on the sidelines did have an effect on how things were being played. Conte, in many of his decisions and many of his tactics in this scenario, were very, very poor. And I'm not conspiratorial and never will be. I think that's an inappropriate way to look at things, but it does seem odd to me the way some of the decisions were made about how we played this game, especially when we went down to 10 men. And I'm sure everybody's going to reference this substitution of I don't even want to say it, of Dan Kulishevsky coming on for Davinson Sanchez. It's a baffling one, right? It just, when you're thinking about where we were in that scenario, we're a goal down. We're down to 10 men. We have on the bench a player in Danjuma, as an example, who potentially could come on. And if if the right breakaway is given because he's got good legs and he can run, instead of bringing on that player, we bring on a defender as if we're the team that's 1-0 up. It's almost like a senile decision. I don't quite get it. I'm not sure what happened there. I would love to hear from Antonio Conte, and I'm sure we'll get a little bit of a straight out of Conte at the end of this, and he'll have his excuses. He'll talk about what he wants to talk about. But there's something wrong with the way he's attempting to manage this squad. And I recognize I'm not, and this channel and myself, and I've sort of come to the sort of logical conclusion that the changes need to come from up top when it comes to how the club is managed and whether or not we're ever going to win something. And leadership comes from the top. All those things obviously are true, but in this case, this is a scenario where the manager in game made a really odd decision, and odd decisions, to be fair, but this one in particular makes no sense to me. I think Antonio Conte needs to take responsibility for this and responsibility for the last 2 weeks. And it's tough because he's gone through a lot. And I know that there's some people who are going to be like, oh, whatever, he's a manager, he's supposed to deal with this, but just a fair position. But I'm a little bit more human when it comes to that. I recognize that what he's gone through, he's lost some people in his life, and he's had a gallbladder operation. It's affected arguably his decision-making and how he's managing the situation. But this was just, Stellini, I believe, on the sidelines was like, what are you doing, dude? Like, this doesn't make any sense. And, I don't understand it. I don't think, if you're a footballing person and you understand sort of like momentum and if, attempting to try to salvage something from nothing, Bring on a defender, not even a very good defender, who's good in the box. Like let's talk about Sanchez's record as a defender. Maybe he gets his head on a corner. How much has he done that? Like, there's no reason to think that this is a good decision. So Conte needs to take responsibility. The club needs to take responsibility. This was one of the worst week and a half, 2 weeks we've had in a long time as a club. And I know that it sounds a bit like, if you're a not even a rival fan, if you're a fan of like a Villa or something, and you're looking at us and you're going, oh, come on, you still were in the Champions League to the whatever point, blah, blah, blah. So what? Like, there's ambition. You get to a certain point and there's investment, and then there's ambition. And then the expectation is to go beyond that. Our expectation as Spurs fans is to go beyond that. We have not done that. We have not gone beyond any of the things that we've been told we are supposed to go beyond based on the investment of the club and the organization from the top down. So it comes down to a lot of different things, but of course I'm going to speak about this game in particular. So I do think Conte needs to take a ton of responsibility here. I would like to see something change, and I don't know what it is, and I don't know how to do it because I'm not in those positions, but Antonio Conte currently is not going to get us in the top 4 in this season. And if that's the goal now, since that's all we have to strive for, which, I agree is fucking nonsense, that's the reality and that's where we are right now. But that is the reality and where we are right now. We should be in the FA Cup still. We should still be in the FA Cup. We should still be in the Champions League. We are not. So our only ambition now is to finish top 4. I know that Conte got us there last season, but does anybody here believe that he's going to get us to that in this current circumstance? Because I don't believe any of it. I don't believe the players believe it either. The way they're performing, the style of play, it's just cagey, boring shit football, and it sucks. And I know, I want the manager to be backed. He gets backed, he gets all the players he wants. We're fine. I'm into that. That isn't what we're seeing, though. And that isn't what we're going to see. What we're going to see is more half-ass, not backing him properly, blaming the manager, and then starting over again. So it's kind of where we are. I wish it was different. I wish I had a happier stream to do. Thank you for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe. Smash the like button. Smash the subscribe button. But all of those things help us. We're trying to, continue to grow this channel. I'll be doing a little bit more when it comes to streaming as much as I possibly can. And Brian will continue to do his Cockerel Doodle Do, and I will continue to do a Cockerel Doodle Don't and some match preview stuff as well. But thank you for watching. We'll see you next time. Have a good one. Cheers. And Conte out, I guess, would be where we're at right now. Bye.